for all of us. It's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. Today on the show, I've got Michelle Boockoff-Bajdek. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at Skillsoft. Michelle is responsible for leading global marketing strategy for the Skillsoft group of companies focused on driving growth, generating brand awareness, and increasing demand for Skillsoft's solutions among learners, customers, and partners. On the show today, we start off about mentors and role models. And I've had a couple in my life, and you'll find out who Michelle's it was as well. We talk about her path to become Skillsoft's CMO and her time at IBM Watson, as well as the Weather Channel before that. We talk about Skillsoft and her priorities currently as the CMO, as well as a lot more related to culture, developing a culture of leadership and learning, and much more. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Michelle Boockoff-Bajdek. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan, so much for having me. It's really exciting to be here today.
Yeah. Well, I thought we could start off talking about role models. I've had a number of role models in my life, two early ones, I guess, in my career. This guy who shares the same name as me, Alan Johnson.
Not related?
Not related. No.
Oh, wow.
No.
Okay.
And another gentleman, John Terrasio. They both worked. One was my direct manager, and the other was a senior executive at a company I worked for right out of college. And they were phenomenal people, very different. Alan was a MFA in art, working in business and business education. And John was more of a business guy. And I believe, if I'm right, he never actually finished his college degree. So like complete different perspectives, master's degree in art and a guy of hard knocks. And I learned so much from both of them. But I wondered if you had a role model in your life growing up.
Absolutely. First, I will tell you, in my professional career, I was very, very fortunate to be mentored by Caroline Taylor, who was the Vice President of Global Marketing and Communications for IBM when I was there. And she was just fantastic. And she happened to be awarded an OBE in 2017. Don't ask me what OBE stands for, but it is an award by the Queen.
Oh my goodness!
In recognition, by the Queen of England, in recognition of her services to marketing diversity and the prevention of human trafficking in the work that she did with Stop the Traffic. And so it's really, I've always been an admirer of hers, and she's always reminded me of the importance of purpose and profits, right? It's not one or the other, but you can do good work and still earn a paycheck. But I would also tell you that the biggest role model probably throughout my life has always been and continues to be my mother, Betsy Veneziano, and I hope she's listening. And what I think really struck me, and it wasn't until much later in life that I realized this, but my mother was a pioneer in the field of technology. She wanted to be a math major at a time when women weren't math majors and there was no computer science degree. And in fact, she was told that she would never be a math major, but she did. She became a math major and wanted an easy class in college. And somebody said, hey, we've got this, I don't know, I think it was Fortran programming class. And she's like, sure, sign me up. And she graduated and started as a programmer at NASA. And then she built a really successful career as a product marketer, a product management executive, and she worked for several technology companies. And then at 50, she stopped, rethought, reinvented, and said, I don't want to do this anymore, but I still want to work. And she went to work for a company that she's been at for about 20 years now as a tier 1 tech support person. And so like this whole just reinvention of herself was amazing to me, because she just recognized that she had grown, she had done so much, and she wanted something different. And so I admire every decision she's made.
She sounds like a wonderful person too.
She's a spitfire. Let me be really, really clear. And I don't mind saying that with her listening.
Yeah, no, I think she'd have to be to have charted that course for herself. Yeah, I mean, my daughter is 15. She would love to hear about your mom as well, because she thinks she wants to potentially work at NASA as a engineer. So she's thinking about that path, and I'm like, luckily she's also kind of a spitfire and doesn't take crap from anybody, and so I think she's going to have to because women are still underrepresented, unfortunately, in the tech field.
Absolutely, and I think that for your daughter, I have a daughter who's 15 as well, and I think that in a lot of ways they are blessed by those who have come before, who have paved the way. Certainly there is still a gender gap, and we have to work hard as women to ensure that our daughters don't have to deal with perhaps some of the things that we've had to. But I do believe that our children, my daughter in particular, and I'm sure your daughter's the same, they are far more capable now than I think I certainly even was. They have access to technology and they understand it. They are digital natives in a way that we never were. I crossed a divide, right? I was here before, really the tech and has sort of crossed that divide, but they just started speaking in tech. And so I think it's really exciting. And I hope your daughter, not only does she become an engineer for NASA, but I hope she achieves whatever dreams she sets out for herself.
Oh, thank you. The same for yours as well. Well, let's talk about you and what's been your path to becoming CMO at Skillsoft.
It's really funny because it's like, well, I never thought I'd follow in the footsteps of my mother. It was never one of those things I set out to do. And yet here I find myself as the chief marketing officer of a tech company, right? But prior to Skillsoft, I had held several executive positions in the high-tech sector, including, I served as the CMO of IBM Watson, where I oversaw marketing for the company's artificial intelligence products and solutions. And that was a great honor. I mean, it is an honor to be the shepherd and the steward of such an iconic brand as Watson. And then prior to that, I was the global head of marketing for the B2B side of the weather company. So, if you're getting your weather from your Apple phone, you're getting it from weather.com. That's what we did. And we helped businesses figure out how to use weather as not just a competitive advantage, but also to understand the impact that it had on their business. And it was just a really wonderful experience. But one thing I've learned, and I think one of the reasons I've landed at Skillsoft, is I've just been a big proponent of continual learning. I've made a habit of seeking new things out, trying to learn more and grow as an individual and help others grow. And so here I am at Skillsoft leading a global marketing organization, and we're focused on helping other people grow themselves, transforming today's workforce to really be ready for what tomorrow's economy is going to bring. And so I'm responsible for, global marketing strategy and all of the sort of traditional functions, right? So demand generation, driving preference. But, interestingly enough, this has been for me a great opportunity to learn a lot about going public. I think it was 17 months ago. We took this company public, and it's been a wonderful experience to bring together 4 different companies, including Skillsoft and Global Knowledge. And then we acquired a coaching business called Pluma. And then in December, we announced our intent to acquire Codecademy and realized that. And so, it's been wonderful to bring these organizations together in a way that makes sense for our customers. In now that you've got this tremendous multimodal learning experience where you're not just going and accessing content, I'm going to go take this course, but rather, this is my path. This is the path I want to be on. This is the job I want to have. These are the skills I need to gain and the competencies I want. And it's all laid out for me in a way that helps me learn faster, helps me absorb more, and hopefully is a little bit entertaining.
I like the last part too.
Right? Well, no, mean, really think about it. I mean, how many times do you oh God, learning has to be absorbing. And I think that's something that, look, if we don't believe that can happen, if we don't think that learning can inspire joy, and even the toughest learning, right? Because you have that compliance course that you have to take, Alan, right? The one where it's like, okay, but think about this. We can make that interesting. We can make the broccoli delicious. And when we do that, it helps people absorb the information so much easier. And if you don't believe it can be done, everyone, think about what airline safety videos were like before Virgin Atlantic changed the name of the game.
Yeah. No, it's very true. It's very true. Well, and the company and how you describe it with all the acquisitions is fascinating to me. And like, this is a weird question to ask, but like, how do I conceptualize what you guys do, like in totality and who you guys serve, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, it's interesting because you've probably taken one of our courses at some point in your life, because for more than 20 years, we've been a pioneer in the online learning industry, whether you call it e-learning or online learning or digital learning. And one of the things that I think we recognized early on is that learning development and growth should be available and accessible to all, because it hasn't been. Traditionally, in-person learning, you could only really serve the very few. And we wanted to democratize that. And so we deliver transformative learning experiences that propel organizations and people, right? So organizations and people to grow together. And when we talk about growth, I think a lot of times we're used to talking about corporate or financial growth, or individually, I want to grow as a person. But I think the two are linked, and that's one of the things that we bring. And in terms of who we serve, more than 75% of the Fortune 500 count on Skillsoft to help them develop and grow their talent, truly transform their workforce. More than 400 million people have benefited from our solutions. And I think that that's absolutely critical in an environment when we see that the skills gap that we have is increasing. Even and especially during times of uncertainty and volatility, we know that this is still a top challenge for leaders. First and foremost, they don't necessarily know what skills they have in-house, right? So they need to be able to assess their talent. And then second, once they have that inventory, they need to figure out what they need. And then they need to put people on paths to get there and then recertify them over time, right? How do I ensure that people not only have gained that knowledge, but are continuously learning to improve, because we know that the technology is moving so quickly. I think the biggest challenge that companies have right now when it comes to the skills gap is the demand for tech skills in particular. It still outpaces the supply. We do an annual IT skills and salary report. And in fact, we announced the 15 top paying IT certifications of 2022. And it's incredible because the need for competencies in cloud, cybersecurity, AI and machine learning, data science, and other technologies, they are growing at a breakneck pace. And I think Burning Glass has estimated there are going to be as many as 18 million new jobs created over the next 5 years. So we've got to teach people the skills they need. By the way, goes beyond just sort of the job-specific skills, the technical skills. We have to teach them to be more agile. We have to teach them to be digitally fluent. We have to teach them to be effective leaders, because these new jobs are going to be coming at a breakneck pace.
No, and I mean, 18 million of them too. Like that's... It's actually kind of hard to fathom, but I know it's true, because I mean, all of those skills you just mentioned are needed in marketing, but I know it's needed in every other function of the company as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about, and I'm sure you talk to marketers every single day, but think about the types of roles that we're hiring. I mean, I have an opening for a data scientist. We hire business analysts. And, I mean, this was certainly not something that we were even contemplating when I started out, but now having what we call digitally fluent team members is absolutely critical when we're hiring. That fluency is something that we really look for.
So we talked about the company. It's really geared around education and skill building. I'd love to, let's talk about your priorities. What are you focused on today?
Well, I can talk about it. Why don't I talk about it from a company perspective? Because I always think that, as marketers, we are only as successful as, when we're thinking about the business in totality. And then I'll tell you a little bit about my marketing priorities if that works for you.
Yeah, that's great.
So when I think about our top priorities, I sort of go back to what I hear from our customers. And I had the great opportunity to hear one speak recently from a top pharmaceutical company. And she shared that the half-life of skills is getting shorter and shorter. So you're going to hear me talk about skills again, because clearly it's a priority. If you think about it, the half-life of a job in the 80s was 30 years. And so the skills you gained early on would last you a lifetime. Now, job roles and job descriptions at this pharmaceutical company change every 18 months. And we're seeing a shift away from learning as just sort of a check the box exercise to becoming a strategic lever for workforce transformation. So in that vein, our top priorities as a company is, how do we help companies make that transition? How do we help them transform their workforce? That's number one. Number two is, we really have to be helping build the technical skills, not just for the jobs of today, not just the things we see now, but what's on the horizon, those 18 million that we talked about before. And then third, and not last, and I think this is critically important, we have to ensure that we are building leaders for tomorrow, because leaders are really the heart and soul of an organization. People stay because of their leaders. Sure, they may leave because of pay or compensation issues, but it's not always the primary reason. The reason that people leave is because they didn't believe in their manager. They weren't being mentored or didn't see a path within the organization. And all that comes down to leadership. And so I think that's critically important. From a marketing perspective, our priorities, they remain steadfast. And I would say that there are four. Especially now, we have to build a very strong and resilient brand. A lot of people, might know Skillsoft from before, but as I mentioned, we've made acquisitions. We have shifted who we are and the things that we now have in our portfolio. And I think that the brand element can't be, I think it's such an important element, because it's not just about fonts and colors, right? It's a business asset that drives value for us. And so, people connect to it functionally, they connect to it emotionally. And when we have a strong brand, we're going to be less vulnerable to competitors. But, I think the thing that we have to remember as well is that branding's a long game. I think it takes years to build equity and meaning, and it requires a sustained focus. And so some of the work that we've done is to really define the core eternal ideas of our brand. And I think as leaders, we have to ask ourselves, what do we value and what do we believe in, right? We have to have a North Star. And without that North Star, we might be prone to changing in sort of trendy, uneven ways. And so for me, this strong and resilient brand, this story that we tell, both internally, by the way, we have to be our first and best customer, and externally is so important. So that's number one. The second won't come as a surprise. We have to decide with data. Right? So we continue to invest in marketing analytics and technology. It allows us to harvest some really great insights and I think do a much better job of shining a light into sort of the darker areas of the B2B funnel. And the forensics that we do help us understand where and how we can allocate our time and resources most effectively. The third, I know this one, you're probably gonna roll your eyes at this one, but skill building, right? I mean, I have to, I gotta say it, and of course I'm gonna be biased, but I truly believe that going forward, the story is gonna be about the ways in which organizations make learning a strategic imperative, particularly in marketing. And I think it's absolutely imperative. I talked about that digital fluency. I talked about the jobs that we're hiring for. And my sense is that every single marketing organization is looking at how to increase or build new competencies to support the needs of their business. And so skill building and cross-skilling, creating really great T-shaped marketers, very, very important. By the way, that is a KPI that I measure and communicate how much people are investing in themselves time-wise, what they're learning, what they're credentialing on. And we not only support and award that, but we actively promote it internally. And then it goes to the fourth thing, right? So if the first is brand, the second is deciding with data, and then skill building or cross-skilling, the fourth goes hand in hand with that, which is fostering a culture of leadership and learning. We're challenged like everybody else to not only recruit, but retain talent in a very competitive marketplace. And I talked about the fact that compensation is important, but we know that personal growth is as vitally important. And so it's this sort of balance that we face. We have to be able to provide an environment in which people can see the path they're onto a more enriching and rewarding career. And by investing in them, we ensure that we have what we need and that we have a workforce, a marketing organization that performs and adapts as the organization does. And that's going to result in growth. So it's not just a nice to have.
No, it's not at all. It's not at all. And I love one, I like all of your priorities. I tend to agree with all of them. And it's not self-serving to say skills at all. And it's very true. And I think marketing today, more than any other time that came before us, necessitates that cross-learning that you talked about. Because you could be a marketer today and have only worked on one element of the marketing mix, or you might have come from art side of marketing and you need to understand the data side or the science side, or vice versa. Frankly, there's a lot of technical folks, I think, that could use the benefit of just marketing fundamentals as well, because they know a piece of it, but they don't know the full picture, if you will.
Yeah. And, I would say the last thing, to work at Skillsoft, we have a set of core values: one team, open and respectful, curious, ready, and true. And I would say the thing that sort of every single person within the organization, look, we believe in all of our values, but I could tell you that we are a curious bunch. And it's one of the reasons it's a value, right? But what I love is when somebody who works on my team comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm really interested in that. Can I learn more?" And it warms my heart, because not only sort of does it reflect what we do, but I love it when people want to invest more time in themselves to grow. And we're always open to that. It's probably one of the things that we hold dear and we value most, is that if you see yourself in an opportunity within the organization, or if you want an opportunity within the organization to do something else, to try something new, to stretch, it's always there. And we work to make it happen.
I like that. I love all of the priorities. The one around the culture of leadership, though, and learning, and the learning component we've been talking about, but the culture of leadership, I think I did some work with the CMO Club a few years back. And I remember asking one of the questions in a survey we put out to the group was, do you have somebody that could step into your shoes if you got hit by the proverbial bus? And 60% said no. And I think when we dug into it through some interviews and some qualitative follow-up, it tended to be two components, right? One is this cross-pollination of skills and knowledge and understanding and experience. The other one was just pure leadership. So I love that you've got that as a pillar as well to your priorities.
Well, and I think that where we have to start, Alan, is with our first-time managers. And we have a first-time manager career journey that we put all of our first-time managers through. It's very important, because I think that's that's the individual that most people within an organization, those who are individual contributors, are going to spend, their time with. And that relationship will really define their experience with the organization. And so as we think about where and how we invest, yes, we need to invest in leadership at all levels. But I would argue that the most important place where we can invest our time is in our first-time managers, because they really do make or break an organization.
Yeah, I've never thought about it quite like you just put it, but you're totally right, which is most of your organization reports to that either first level manager or that newly promoted manager, right? And then, how managers report to managers, et cetera. But like it can make or break you if that experience is not one, good, or sometimes I'm sure we all have experienced this. It's not always consistent either. So we need a little consistency and we need it to be a good experience. So I love that that's a focus. Because to your point, if you can get it right then the next component, the next place on your journey as a leader is managing managers. And it's a different skill set, but if you've got that baseline, you also know how to coach them.
Exactly. And leadership is something that, I certainly think it's learned over time. But when you can give people the tools to be better leaders, when you can arm them with the information, with helping them through scenarios, helping them performance manage their employees, it gives them such when they have that toolbox, they are better equipped. And we know that employees are far more satisfied when they understand their role, when they've been given clear guidance by their leadership, and when they can see a path to the future, that there is a shared ownership between the individual contributor and their manager to say, here's where I want to go. And I know you are there to help me get there. And oh, by the way, I'm going to do all this great work for the organization too, and I'm going to help us achieve our goals. And that's where we talk about, we kind of go back to that propelling organizations and people to grow together, because when people do well, their organizations benefit.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Well, I want to get your thoughts on one more topic. Sustainability seems to be kind of increasingly led by marketers, and at least some of the ones that I've had on the show. And I'm curious, like, what role do companies and marketers like yourself kind of play in carrying out sustainability initiatives? It's a new space, I think, for marketers to even think about.
Alan, I think, look, it's pretty clear to me, and I think to so many companies out there, that we need to address an environment that is rapidly changing. We know our planet's at a tipping point. And I think, even the recent spate of weather has proven that severe weather, it's a major consequence. And we have a role to play. And I think every organization does. And so I'm proud that Skillsoft has recognized that, not only in the curriculum courseware that we offer, and we have an Aspire journey in sustainability, but also in our commitment to becoming or being a responsible business, which focuses on everything from the E, which is climate and carbon, right? And knowing our own footprint and setting a baseline and making sure that we improve every single day, every single week, every single year against the targets that we've set. And on the S, and we've got a pretty robust and always have had a strong corporate social responsibility, working with a number of organizations to supply them with licenses so that we can serve those populations that may not have access to this kind of learning. And whether that is Women Plus, or whether that is learning deserts where you just aren't able to get the access, we are really, really proud to partner with so many organizations that are bringing learning to those who, again, just may not have had the opportunity to utilize a platform like ours and gain some of the skills that we've talked about and unlock opportunities. And then the G, which is really around governance and making sure that as companies we're doing the right things. And we're going to be launching our first impact report this fall, and it's something that we're really excited about. And I think we've become acutely aware that we need to share a lot of this work publicly, what we've been doing already from a sustainability perspective and what we intend to do in the future. And so it's exciting. And it's also exciting to help shepherd this program, because for me, it was a learning opportunity. And for me, I'm building new skills. And even as a chief marketing officer, I think that's important.
No, it definitely is. And it goes to the culture of curious people that you have as well. You're living that culture every day, and even in your own way. So that's awesome. And I applaud your efforts. I mean, sustainability is, like you said, I mean, it's an increasing focus of many, many marketers out there, and we need it. Frankly, the planet needs us to need it.
Yes. And I think that our employees expect it of us. I think our customers are driving us, and I think investors also. But most importantly, I think that, just we as humans, as people, we want to leave this place, or we want to leave this world in a much better place than when we got here. And right now we're not doing a good enough job. But I think if more of us stand up and really get engaged and involved, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I want to switch gears. We love to get to know, especially first-time folks have been on the show. First-time folks, ask a number of questions. And my first and favorite question to ask is, has there been an experience of your past that defines and makes up who you are today?
Yes, but I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a downer. Oh my God. Oh.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a sort of a red thread through this whole discussion that we've been having, and it's about leadership. And I worked for a company. Oh my God, I'm gonna date myself, but I worked for a company back in the early 2000s called GN Jabra headsets, Danish multinational. They launched the very first Bluetooth wireless headset, really cool technology. It was an amazing organization to be a part of. And it was really heady stuff for me as a new leader. I was a newly minted leader of an organization on September 11th, 2001, when the plane struck the World Trade Center. And I have to tell you, that was a very defining moment. My leadership was tested. I think everybody's leadership was tested. We didn't know really what was happening as we watched on television the planes go into those buildings. What we did know was that we had to prioritize our employees. We had to address their needs in the moment, and we had to determine later on how to move the business forward in a post 9/11 world. But like right away, we had to start with Maslow's hierarchy, because in the immediate aftermath, as leaders, we had to focus on our team's most basic needs. We had a lot of people in the air that day, number one. Number two, we were right next door to an FAA center. So everything was locked down because nobody knew what was happening. So the very first thing we had to do was locate our people. We had to ensure they were safe. We had to find out what they needed for the immediate future. We had to determine transport. Entire North American airspace was shuttered for 2 days. It took almost a week to get our stranded colleagues home. And at the same time, we had to focus on our employees' well-being, the emotional as well as the physical, by providing employee assistance programs. We were in the Boston area, and some of us had friends and colleagues who had been killed in those attacks. And so as leaders, we had to make ourselves available, oftentimes after hours, to help those who were struggling. And this was a really, really new, but also pivotal moment for me as a leader, because I think what we demonstrated was that the most important element of leadership has nothing to do with the technology we sell or the business decisions that we make, but rather the people that we serve. And we listened to them, and we gave them grace when they struggled. We made their suggestions part of the solution. And when they were fearful about getting in the air, we tried to help in any way. And so I recognize that we reacted, I think, to the crisis as well as we could have. But I also think it served as an opportunity for us to really think about the importance of having plans for these absolutely horrific moments. And I'll tell you, almost 20 years later, we had to execute against another massive event when we shuttered our offices and sent thousands of people home on March 12th, 2020, right? And so once again, our employees and our customers even turn to us for guidance on business continuity and managing in times of crisis, because we have courses on this and empathetic leadership and more. And so if I've learned anything about these experiences, is that we have to make sure that leaders are prepared, that they have plans in place for the next disruption, whenever and whatever it is, because it will come.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I think anyone that lived through 9/11. And I remember as you were describing it, I mean, like immediately go back to that place I was working. Actually, I think I was working at the time, John Tarasio, the mentor I talked about at the top of this, he was still leading the organization I was working for at the time. And we had a field service force, and many of which we're in New York. They were service technicians. We did mail processing, servicing, and there was a mail processing customer in the basement of the World Trade Center. And we were frantically, of course, we pivoted our call center that usually is taking customer calls to doing outbound calls, trying to locate everyone, to your point. And luckily, no one was there that day on our team. Obviously, our customers were impacted quite a bit. But it's so vivid. I remember walking into the lunchroom and seeing the news reports on the TV, because the TV, was on 24/7 after that point. And it was just like so surreal. But to your point around leadership, it was a pivotal moment for many people. And I think to your point about the pandemic, I think if you didn't live through that as a business person in 2001, you lived through it again in a very different way in 2020. And those leadership skills translate, I think, in spades. And I hope we don't have another one, a pandemic or otherwise, but it's probably inevitable, though, at some point in our time.
Yeah. And I think the best thing as leaders that we can do is just recognize that disruption, and it doesn't necessarily have to be as catastrophic, but disruption happens. And so being prepared, understanding what we as leaders need to do. And, again, I take it back to Maslow's hierarchy, right? Food and shelter, but have a thoughtful plan in place, again, for whatever that disruption may be.
Well said. What advice would you give your younger self if you're starting this journey all over again?
Can I give it to myself now too?
Sure. I love that.
Michelle, stop being so hard on yourself. It's true. Look, I think as a young person, as an older person, it's really easy to get caught up in the expectations, not that others set for us, but that we set for ourselves, right? I think other people tend to set more realistic expectations for us. And then we put ourselves into these positions where, when we don't achieve the thing that we wanted to achieve or the goal that we set for ourselves by the time we turn 30 or 40 or whatever it is, we're just beating ourselves up. And, if there's one thing I learned throughout this pandemic, besides the fact that there's a bird that lives right outside my window that I never noticed before, and I've named her B. Arthur. I promise you, there's a whole story there. We'll talk about it another time. But we have to give ourselves grace. We owe it to ourselves to be kinder to each other, but mostly to ourselves. And I'll just give you one more anecdote. I have a coach. I think everybody should have a coach. And again, whole nother story, but I was writing down all these things and talking to my coach, and she said to me, Michelle, you said one of your goals is to be a great role model for your daughters. And I said, yes, that's the thing that is most important to me. And she said, what message do you think it sends when they see you beating yourself up every single day? And I was like, whoa, I know, Alan, that one. So it has been, I'm a work in progress, as many people are. But for me, that was a moment in which I decided that it's not fair to them to see me take things to heart in the way that I do. And so I've been working hard on giving myself grace and watching B. Arthur outside my window a little bit more.
I love that. And what a great coach to feed it right back to you.
I know.
Is there a topic you think marketers need to be learning more about right now? We know you're on this journey around sustainability yourself, but curious on the marketing front if there's anything you'd point to?
Oh my gosh. I think as marketers, we have to be business people first. I think it's really critically important, and I say this to everyone in my organization, that you understand your business, the financials of your business, what drives your business, how it's growing, what's on the horizon. So doing horizon scanning and make sure you understand the trends in the market. I think sometimes we tend to think very narrowly about our job, our role, the number of leads we're generating, when in fact, I really do encourage people to be learning more about the nature of their business and what makes it successful, because it helps them contribute more. So every single all hands that I run, we've got someone from another part of the business coming in and talking about what they do and why it's important, and really helping, I think, to steep us and ground us in the way in which we conduct our business. And in doing so, I hope that our team members have a different perspective that they're able to apply to their marketing.
Well, curious, 2 more questions for you. Are there brands, companies, or causes that you follow or you think other people should take notice of?
I'll start with 2 brands and then a cause. Okay, so who doesn't love Chewy? I mean, come on. So first of all, I think I as we started talking, my dog was knocking on the door. He doesn't like closed doors. And look, this is a company that sends birthday cards to their animal customers and gifts. I mean, flowers when their pets pass, and they ask customers to donate food and treat instead of returning to the manufacturer. I don't think that there is another company that I can think of right in the top of my head outside of our own, whose purpose isn't, their purpose is embedded into the DNA of the company. The other company that has really impressed me is Microsoft. I spoke with a friend recently to learn more about their environmental, social, and governance strategy. And it is incredible. And it is top down from Satya Nadella. It's embedded into their culture and it is infused in their vision and their purpose throughout. And so it was a great opportunity. Actually, I will mention a third company because I got to be honest, but and probably maybe a little embarrassed, but TikTok. I mean, come on. The way that it's transformed the creator space, it's unimaginable, but it's astonishing. It's changed the job market. Like people put their resumes on 3-minute TikToks, and the way you can showcase your skills online to millions of people, it's absolutely amazing. And then for my cause, I'm really, really passionate about homeless veterans. And we have a local organization here called Liberty House. And I adore the work they do, helping veterans find meaningful employment and housing. It's a personal passion. My father was actually a homeless veteran. And so for me, this organization is doing great work. And I hope that if anybody is familiar with Liberty House, or, if they're not, they'll check it out.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we'll definitely link to it for sure.
Thank you.
And yeah, sounds like a great cause. Well, last question for you. What do you feel like is the largest opportunity or threat facing marketers today?
Oh, goodness. I'll start with threat because I think, look, we've already talked about it, but I think the threat is not building skills and not building the skills not thinking about the skills that you're going to need. I think, just assuming that what marketing is today is what marketing is going to be tomorrow. We know that the landscape is radically changing. And I think investing in skill building for your organization is absolutely critical, right? And it's not just because it's what I do, but because I see it in every organization that when you give people the skills they need, they're going to be more successful. And when you don't, it can be a detriment to the organization. In terms of opportunities, I would say for marketers, there has never been a better time to be in marketing with the tools and the technologies we have. But I think the thing that we have to remember is that people don't necessarily want to be marketed to. They want to be communicated with. And so I think, we've got to create better dialogues with people. And lastly, I would say the opportunity as well is, to create purpose, because more and more people, I think, are looking at the companies they do business with and saying, does this organization value what I value? Do they believe in the things that I believe in? Are they keeping their purpose close to their product? And do they have purpose in this world? And that's not just people who are going to be working with your company, but people who will be working for your company. And so I think that we as marketers have to think about what we do differently. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to do just that.
I 100% agree. And I just want to say thank you. This has been a phenomenal conversation.
I hope so. And, look, I've enjoyed it as well. Hopefully you can sense I love what I do. And I think I wish that for everybody. I hope that the people who are listening out there aren't just going to work and it's like drudgery, but instead that, they're finding passion and purpose in their jobs.
Well said. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me with post-production support from Sam Robertson. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe on marketingtodaypodcast.com. Tell your friends and colleagues about the show. I love hearing from listeners. You can contact me at marketingtodaypodcast.com. There you'll also find complete show notes and links to what was discussed in the episode today, and you can search our archives. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.